Welcome to the West video series. My name is Enrico Remigi and I'm the process modeler in the West development team. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a new component to one of the base categories of the West library. And to do this, I'm going to use the model editor tool of West release 2016, which I have started up in the meantime. And next, I'm going to open the standard block library of release 2016. Now, the safest way to proceed when you're working with categories, which means with conversion models in West, is to create copies of the original implementation and rather work on these copies. That's at least the practice that I normally follow. So I'm going to select the ASM1 temp and duplicate it and work on the copy. Let me just collapse for a couple of minutes the properties pane. Select the ASM1 temp you see in the categories branch, right click copy. You can do the same by using the shortcut or the button here in the menu bar. So copy, then I select the branch, categories, paste, and a duplicate of ASM1 is appended to the list of categories. Next, I'm going to rename it to something slightly more meaningful, ASM1 mod for modified, and then I can add my new component. I would like to add a new soluble component, so I'm going to call it, right click on components, call it s_xt1, xt for extra. Now in MSL, the programming language used for the West library, in order for a component to be handled as either soluble or particulate in the scope of solid separation models such as settling models, the component needs to be all the soluble and all the particulate components need to be adjacent, and so I first need to move this new component above any of the X components, and I also need to add it to one of these two groups, solubles. Now I can check if this has resulted in the correct implementation in the GUI matrix, and to do so I'll go to the conversion models, select the default conversion model, double click, and this is the GUI matrix for my new category ASM1 mod. Scroll a little bit to the right and I'll see my new component s_xt1, right sequence within the soluble components and flagged as soluble, which is exactly what I needed. Now you may also remark that it doesn't take part in any of these processes because we haven't added any stoichiometric coefficients, which is good for now, and this is sufficient for what I wanted to demonstrate in this video. Next, I will generate code, integrate it in the library, and verify it by creating a new project. However, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that such a category would already be of practical interest, for instance, in the scope of a tracer test simulation, because I have added a non-reactive soluble component, which is exactly the behavior of a tracer substance. I'm going to illustrate this in a separate video, which I invite you to view. I'm going to continue now. So I close the GUI matrix for the time being and rather go here because I want to show you two properties of a category that are of importance. First of all, evidently the description, which I recommend you to maintain up to date every time you make a change. So this is not the active agents large model number one, at least not the standard implementation. So what I can write here is modified ASM1. And the second property is this use subfolder, which is set to true by default. What does this mean? It means that when I will generate the code, we'll let West, the model editor, generate the code for my category, the files that will be generated will be stored in a subfolder called after the category, so a folder called ASM1, within the main folder, models, that contains the whole model library. And I can prove you this because now I'm going to generate code, the blue button here. I can confirm here the location is models, subfolder ASM1 mod, and then I'm going to the Model Library Explorer page, refresh this tree view, and you will see, there we go, the new folder appear with a bunch of MSL files stored inside it. Now, in order to actually use or instantiate a category in West, I need an instance that refers to that particular category. So what I'm going to do next, again, don't need the properties for some time, is to duplicate the ASM1 temp instance. So I go to this instance branch, right click on ASM1 temp, copy, go back, select instances, and paste. This is the copy of ASM1 temp, which I now need to adjust a little bit. So first of all, I'm going to rename this ASM1 mod. The convention that we generally use for the West library is to name an instance after the category that it references, or the main category that it references. You see now that multiple category references can be used in the scope of an instance. This is the first change. Then I need to update this instance setting and set its value to ASM1 mod. I will also need to remove these 3 category references and rather add a reference to my new category, ASM1 mod. And finally, I will update the description of this instance. So I've selected the instance here, and I'm going to update this description. This is again the modified ASM1 instance for C and N removal with s_xt1. The other property, the other key property that needs to be updated is this palette lib. The palette lib indicates the set of icons that are going to be available to create a layout in West. So this set of icons will be exactly the same as the one used by ASM1 temp. So I'm going to ASM1 temp, select the palette lib, copy, and very easily go back here, select and paste. So I'm going to use exactly the same palette lib for ASM1 mod. Good. Now the necessary code have been generated, but it now needs to be I need to make West aware of the new instance and new category in order to use this in for a new project. And this requires some manual work, which I have summarized here. That is to add, to include 3 key files in 3 key positions in the library. The first file is a definition file. It indicates the components, the state that form the state vector of my new category, the reactions, the list of processes of my new category, and the conversion file, which describes the GUI matrix of my new category. and I have to add these three files to respectively the definitions MSL, the reactions MSL, and the volume ASM conversion model body MSL. This is what I'm going to do next. And I'll need the model library explorer view and the includes page. Let me expand the WWTP main, and you see here the definitions MSL and the reactions MSL. The other file I will show you in a minute. So I double click on definitions MSL, which displays the content of the file in the code editor. And I go right at the bottom, copy the last three lines from the opening if def to the closing end if, and modify it for my new instance, so ASM1 mod. What does this tell the West compiler? That whenever a project uses ASM1 mod category, it will have to look into this subfolder and locate this definitions file in order to create the state vector to find the components for my category. I can now save the changes, Ctrl S, and do something very similar for the reactions MSL. Go to the bottom, copy these three lines and update to ASM1 mod here, here, and here. Again, it will tell the compiler to look for the reactions inside this subfolder and this file, reactions MSL. Ctrl S. And finally, the conversion model is inside the WWTP base in the file called volume ASM conversion model body. Once again, go to the bottom, copy these three lines, paste, and update ASM1 mod here, here, and here. After the comment, after the two slashes, is not strictly necessary, but for consistency, I will do it. There we go, Ctrl S, and this will instruct the compiler where to look for the Guyer matrix body. Very well, so we did these three changes. Now I can finally save my block library, which I haven't done so far. So I go here, save block library. Very well. Now I could use my new instance, my new library, to create a new project. But before going there, I would like to verify that I have made no mistakes in this new implementation. And to do so, I will have to check the instance. There we go. There we go. The check was successful. Now I must tell you that in order to check this instance successfully with the standard 2016 model library, you need to make a couple of small changes, which however are not strictly related to the topic of this video, so I prefer to cover these in some more details in a separate video. And I have made these changes to my library, and that's why it checks correctly. There's, however, another change that I need to make in order to make use of this this category or this instance, and that has to do with the correct initialization of some quantity that explicitly use the state vector, the state components. This is the case for at least the mass vector M, which is used in most of the base blocks of the West library. at least because there are other objects, similar objects, for which the same applies. They also need to be initialized correctly for each and every instance of the block library. But these objects are somewhat less common because they are used in some other unit processes, which I'm not planning to use in this video, to just check if this instance works. So I will restrict myself to only the M vector for the activated sludge models. And to do this, I will go once again to the code editor. So I'm going to this time open the WWTP base, scroll down to here to the state section around line 90, and you see here the object M, the vector M, obj M, is defined. And immediately after this definition, there are blocks starting from a if defined and ending with an end if for every instance of my library. So I will need a similar block. So I'm going to select this one, copy, paste, update it for ASM1 mod. And just copy one of these elements from the opening curly bracket to the comma. In this way, I have effectively initialized my state vector in the scope of ASM1 mod, which has one additional component compared to ASM1. And save, Ctrl S. So now I am ready to test this new implementation. I'm going to West, and I'm going to create a new project. It points to the right block lib, very well. This is my new instance, as you can see, with an updated description. This is the benefit of keeping the description up to date, and a new project called, let's say, video add new component. Very well, so now I can drop, for instance, an activated sludge tank and inspect the state variable. So I go to the block details, variables tab page, and you will see here the concentration vector C with my new component S_xt1, and similarly the M vector, the mass vector, with the new component correctly initialized to 1. And this is really all I wanted to show in this video. And so thank you for your attention, for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll invite you to continue watching and come back for more videos. Thank you. Goodbye.